Odds and Ends by Corndog_Patrol and For the Wolfie. Chapter 4 A Tailored Experience. Hizashi had tried to stay away, knowing it would be best to give Shouta more time to settle, but he'd been so eager to learn more about the human that he'd barely slept. Who can blame him? Hizashi wanted to know everything about the newest member of the household, even if he couldn't drink his blood. He found Omuri and Shouta in the library, marveling the connection of fine books. "So, how's the tour?" The two turned to him instantly. The man beamed, but Shouta scowled in distaste. Hisashi had been so desperate to make a good first impression on him that he'd made a horrible first impression, but he was determined to change that. "Was fine till now," Shouta murmured, which made Nomori snort with amusement. Hisashi glanced at her, but she simply winked. Always helpful. "Was your room okay? If there's anything you need to change with it, just let me know." "Here for my blood?" Shouta moved his hair away from his neck, face still set in a scowl. "Just get it over with." Hisashi stared at the scar he left the previous night, and his senses instantly buzzed at the memory of how delicious his blood had tasted. His fangs grew uncomfortable in his mouth, but he controlled himself. "No, I just wanted to see how you were settling, and I thought I could help with the tour." Shouta moved his hair back over the scar, and Hisashi's fangs returned to their normal size. Nomori looked between them, and suddenly gasped in surprise. "Oh, I forgot I was going to help Obi with breakfast. Are you able to finish the tour, Hisashi? Thank you." Before he could stop her, she'd already hurried off. Hisashi made a face. He wanted Nomori to do the tour so Shouta would feel more comfortable. But now... "Well, sorry for the change of plans," Hisashi said sheepishly. "What did Nomori show you before she got distracted?" "Most stuff," Shouta murmured as he leaned against the table. "First and second floors." Hisashi frowned. "Well, the third floor only contains more bedrooms," he lied. "And I don't think Nomori or Tensei bother to clean them, so I'd rather you not see it." He laughed sheepishly. "Oh, I'll show you the grounds. You'll love them. Unless Nomori already showed them?" Confliction crossed the human's face, as if he was deciding whether to tell the truth or a lie. However, he murmured, "I haven't seen them." "Great!" Hisashi looked to Shouta and quickly checked out his clothes, the same as yesterday. "I've also requested a tailor for you. They should be arriving soon to take your measurements." Shouta looked sour at the news. "Hey, don't look so down. You'll look super cool in some new threads." Once the human saw how beautiful the gowns were, he was bound to feel more comfortable. Hisashi led him towards the gardens, planning to go through the front entrance, and Shouta begrudgingly followed. However, they were stopped by another shape racing ahead. Tensei reached the front door before them and held the handle. "You wish to see the gardens?" he asked. "Perhaps you should take Kan with you." Hisashi deflated instantly. "No, I think we'll be perfectly safe. Thank you for the concern, though." However, Tensei didn't open the door. "I'll have Kan join you," he said, passive-aggressive smile in place. "But I'll let him know he isn't to speak out of terms, and he must keep a distance, unless something should happen. I imagine that'll be acceptable?" Hisashi sighed, but agreed. "Well, at least he'll have that irritated look on his face the entire time. That'll be fun enough." He turned back to Shouta. "I promise he won't bite. Literally." Shouta raised an eyebrow at him, but Hisashi grinned back. Shujiro didn't take too long to appear, and, just as he predicted, his face was locked in a sneer that rivaled Shota's. The bodyguard opened the door for them at last and waved to signal their exit. Hisashi led the way down the front staircase and stopped at the bottom to marvel the water fountain. At its center was an angel surrounded by playful stone curbs, holding a bowl that poured forth water. Hisashi pulled a coin from his pocket and offered it to Shouta, along with a grin. "Make a wish, and if it lands in the bowl, then it'll come true." Shouta took the coin and stared down at it apprehensively, as if it was about to turn into a spider. Wishes don't work like that. But wishing wells do. Hisashi winked. Besides, it's more difficult than it looks. It took me years to master the impressive coin flip technique. If you want some pointers, then I can. Before he could finish the thought, Hisashi flipped the coin. It spun high into the air and immediately sunk into the center of the bowl, barely making a sound. Hisashi stared in awe, but Shouta appeared unimpressed. Hisashi pursed his lips. Beginner's luck. It's called trajectory. So, what did you wish for? Shouta rolled his eyes and said nothing as he turned to marvel the dirt driveway. Hisashi let it slide as he joined him, while Shujiro looked on from a distance. Tree lines the road, painted symmetrically with a few meters between each trunk. There's barely change since Hisashi had been a young boy, and he'd always enjoyed seeing the sun set through the mayor's gates, as if the sun was a departing guest. This way, Hisashi said at last, and beelined for the side of the house. His companions followed behind him as he decided where to begin the tour. Well, this here is the rose garden. He grinned as he gestured towards said flowers. Expecting excitement, instead both Shouta and Kan looked on indifferently. Hisashi waved his hands for dramatic effect, but still achieved zero reaction. The human turned away and quietly murmured, I think I want to change my wish. Roses are pretty. Hisashi moved to the closest bush and pulled off one of the roses, accidentally prickling himself on a thorn. Here. He turned to Shouta and placed the flower behind his ear, so his black hair gently brushed over it. Shouta froze up, similar to when Hisashi had bit at him, but it didn't last long. His heart rate didn't change either. The human stepped away from him and pulled the flower from his hair. You're bleeding. Huh? Hisashi looked to his hand and noticed red, bleeding from where he snagged himself on a thorn. Oh, it's fine. He placed the wounded finger in his mouth to clean it. It tasted disgusting and made his nose crinkle, a usual reaction to vampire's blood. It would have been easier if vampires could drink from other vampires, but their taste buds disagreed. Shouta turned away as he dropped the rose to the dirt below. Well, Hisashi continued as he popped his finger from his mouth, there's still plenty of garden to see. Breakfast! Shouted Oboro from one of the back entrances of the mayor, waving at them eagerly. I hope you're hungry. I've cooked a ton. Hisashi deflated at the tour being cut short. Well, I guess we'll reconvene later. The expression on both companions' faces didn't look pleased by the promise. Hey, come on, it's great out here. Ken turned to Shouta and pointed over to the garden. Vegetable patch, lake, second fountain, gazebo, and flowers. Done. He turned back to Hisashi and folded his arms. The blonde glowered unhappily. Such a spoil sport. Come on then, let's get some food. The dynamic was strange, to say the least. The way the vamps talked to each other was far more casual than any lord-servant relationship should have seen before, but perhaps that was what came from having only a few members in the large house. Hisashi was the strangest of them all. His personality seemed to fluctuate between being sly and sheepish, depending on his company. Of all the vamps he encountered in the castle, Hisashi and the chef seemed the least threatening. However, it was hard to make any real decisions about that until he learned their quirks. Emmy's job was to access their paperwork, and she would arrange a visit to see him once she learned everything. By the time they reached the dinner room, breakfast had already been laid out by the maid and butler, while the cook was still clanging away in the kitchen. Nomuri looked up at them as they entered and immediately brightened. How was the rest of the tour? Fine, Shouta mumbled, and the woman wove him over to a chair. He sat in it, as her request, and she placed a napkin on his lap. Khan practically did it for me in 10 words, Hisashi explained as he sat at the head of the table, Shota's own chair was far from his, although he was surprised to find 6 places set. Even the servants would be joining the meal. This manner was weird. 9 words. Khan clarified. It's a garden, not a museum. The guard turned to Shouta. If you need to exercise in the future, do some laps of it. You look like the sort to keep fit. Shouta nodded. It was probably the best news he's had since he arrived. Nomori sat beside him, and the chief finally appeared with one final platter, which he placed on the center of the table before sitting beside her. So, Shouta, Nomori said brightly, as the other filled their plates with food. Tell us about yourself. He eyed the food. Although he was hungry, it was possible they poisoned the meal. He waited to see what the vamps ate and would eat accordingly. Not much to tell, Shouta said, mostly to her, although the silence at the table told him that the others were tuned in on his words. The best option was to stick as close to the truth as possible. My home burned to the ground, so I had nowhere else to go. I was a contract worker, but after I lost the apartment, they didn't think I was stable enough to work. All I had left of any worth was my blood. He kept his heart as steady as possible, but there wasn't any need, since it was all technically true. Shouta had been living with Emmy for a month, until Hizashi had bought him. It was thanks to her that he'd been accepted as a donor at all, since he would have otherwise failed the background check. Sorry to hear about that, Nomori said, her voice soft and genuine. What about your family? Gone, Shouta said, perhaps too quickly. If his heart sped up at all when he said that, it wasn't because he was lying. His family was gone. Well, said Hizashi, just as Isawa picked up a plate of food. Now you're part of our family. Shouta dropped the plate. It smashed as it hit the table and food spilled across the white cloth. All eyes turned on him, and Shouta couldn't control his racing heart. His hands were trembling with utter anger. How dare a vamp say something so wrong? Vamps have only ever taken. They've taken his mother, and his father, and his brother, and... Hey! Nomori's voice was soft in his ear, the only other human in the room. She was the only other one he could listen to, who might have some understanding of what he'd been through, even if she was brainwashed. One day at a time. Nomori stood and started to pick up the pieces of broken porcelain, and he quickly stopped to help her. Sorry, he murmured, but he aimed the word specifically at her, and refused to look at any of the leeches. No, I'm sorry, Hizashi said, and should have resisted the urge to say he hadn't been speaking to him. But he was reminded of his plan. Unfortunately, she had to get in this bloodsucker's good graces. Damn it. Is there anything we can do to help you settle better? All eyes went on Shouta. What was he supposed to say? That there was no way he could possibly set her in a manual full of leeches? That he'd feel more comfortable if they all disappeared? I just need time, he murmured instead. Hizashi stood, although his breakfast had already been touched. Thank you, Oboro, but I should get some practice in. He smiled, but the others were cold at his words as he left. Should have watched him go and retook his seat. Although he was no longer hungry, Nomori and Oboro looked disheartened at their lord's leave. Tensei looked guarded, while Kan's lip quivered with a scowl. The bodyguard couldn't control his anger. He thumped his fist on the table and growled at Shouta. He took you in, and this is how you repay him? Kan warned Tensei. Shouta did nothing wrong. It did little to quell the guard's anger. He got to his feet and stormed out of the room, leaving only the 4 remaining. Shouta couldn't bring himself to react. I'm sorry about that, said the butler. Kan has a bit of a temper. Shouta didn't respond. Here, Nomori said as she paused Shouta at a plate with a bit of everything on. Best this doesn't go to waste. It smelled delicious, despite his lack of appetite. He was still unsure about eating it. But by the way Oboro and Tensei quickly resumed eating, it seemed safe enough, and he needed the energy in case a fight broke out. Shouta ate his portions as quickly as he could. He was so used to his cheap, simple meals that he devoured the delicious breakfast at an astronomical speed, and Nomura even gathered him a second plate that he quickly finished as well. At least Oboro seemed glad he was enjoying the cooking. They were only disrupted by a thunderous knockering bang against the entrance door. Tensei brightened immediately. That must be the tailor. Please show to follow me. While the thought of being measured wasn't exactly desired, having some new clothes would be worth it. As he left the room, Shouta glanced back at Oboro and Nomura. Thank you, he murmured, and that brought a smile to both of their faces. Even though Oboro was a vampire, he at least made good food. Tensei wheeled ahead of him in front of the door, calling out that he was on the way, and Shouta stood back as a man entered with a bag. He was another vampire with slick blonde hair and a high collar to hide his mouth. His clothes were elegant, even if the blue was gauzy and too pronounced. Hello, Tensei. Long time no see, Hakamada. Did you have a smooth trip? Always, he said as Tensei shut the door behind him. The gaudy blue coat was removed and placed on the rack, revealing an iron blouse beneath. Apparently, the high collar was a separate piece of clothing altogether, although he didn't remove it. I was surprised when I learned Mr. Yamada brought on a donor. Oh, is this him? Yes, this is Shouta. Tensei wheeled to the side, and Hakamada looked at the slayer up and down. Shouta felt uncomfortable beneath the gaze. He's still getting used to the place, but some new clothes might make him feel more better. Of course. Tensei led the group to one of the secondary living rooms, which had a table at its center. There was already a standing stool in place for later. Hakamada pulled out a bundle of papers and books from his bag and set them down on the table as he took a seat. Here are some of the donor clothing designs that are very fashionable at the moment. Shouta sat between them and was handed a book by Tensei. Each designer outfit made his stomach churn. The outfits were minimal to reveal a lot of skin, as if humans were pets rather than people. Many of them were themed after animals. It reminded him more of lingerie than clothing. Shouta needed to improve his reputation here, and he was already doing a poor job of it. Wearing whatever tacky outfits Tensei picked for him would certainly improve that, but how could he be expected to wear such provocative trash? Tensei took the book from Shouta and offered it back to the tailor. Mr. Yamada requested a traditional wardrobe. May we see those designs instead? Shouta wasn't sure what was meant by that, but Hakamada was surprised. For a donor? Tensei nodded. Well, okay, here. He was given another book, and when Tensei opened it, it revealed designs of proper, upper-class outfits. The butler surprised him further by offering the book to Shouta. Choose as many as you want. Some casual are good, but make sure most are formal. He expected the outfits to deteriorate the more he flipped through, but they never did. Each was proper, although some were more formal than others, and each was illogically expensive. Despite the lack of concern for the vamps, he felt genuinely uncomfortable with the request to choose as many as he wanted. He offered the book back to Tensei and quietly said, Any are fine as long as they're comfortable. Tensei nodded, his smile never fading. I'm sure that can be arranged. I suppose it's measurement time. Please stand there and remove your shirt, ordered Hakamada as he opened the bag again, pulling out a measurement tape. Should have followed the directions and stood on the stool, revealing the scars across his body. Unlike a vampire, he didn't have any healing powers. I'll go fetch some tea and sweets. the butler said as he wheeled to the door. "I'll be back shortly." He left the room and closed the door, leaving Shouta alone with the blonde vampire. In an instant, tight threads wrapped around Shota's body, pinning his arms to the sides. The threads were linked to the tip of the trailer's fingers. However, Shouta had something most humans didn't. In a panic, the Slayer activated his own quirk. As his eyes burned and his hair raised, the threads fell away. He realized his error. "Just as I thought," said the vamp, his eyes sharp. "Hello, Eraserhead." That's one hell of a cliffhanger. So tomorrow I'm not going to post. I'm joking. I would do that just to spite you, but no. I will be posting tomorrow. What day is it tomorrow? Friday. Yeah, I will be posting tomorrow. But yeah, that was one hell of a little cliffhanger. Right? It's not a big cliffhanger. You just gotta wait 24 hours. You're good. You'll survive. You'll survive. I had the massive cliffhanger when I was reading this, because I was reading this when the AO3 attack happened, and AO3 was down for like 2 days. Okay, I'm composed now. Yeah. So I was reading this while that happened. So I would like to inform you that you have to wait 24 hours. I had to wait 2 days, and thinking, because a lot of around that time I saw a lot of people saying that it was gonna last a week, and I was like, no, my fan fiction. Wait, I have a YouTube channel dedicated to that. What about my YouTube? I was so worried. But yeah, this cliffhanger isn't gonna be as big. Don't worry. Can we talk about the lingerie? This is something that I wanted to talk about since the first time I read this. That is dehumanizing. I'm sorry, but literally putting animal ears, like literally some of them animal themed, it's giving me the ick. It's dehumanizing. It is dehumanizing. I get it if the clothes have to reveal a bit of their neck and shoulders, because yeah, that's what they do. They're basically blood bags, right? But I'm sorry, full out lingerie? Like, really? Really? That is major ick. If I was a vampire, I would not want that for my donor. I'm giving my donor the best life they can have, right? They're supplying me with life. The least I could do is get them something that isn't as dehumanizing as mother freaking lingerie. You get to pick out your ball gown, whatever you want. You ask for it, I give, right? If I can give it, I will give it, right? Because you're literally these people are literally giving life to the vampires, right? Without these people, the vampires would have to go back to literally like blood bags, right? And without the people who were donating the blood from the blood bags, they also wouldn't be able to, get food, right? So the least they could do to their donor, who is personally giving them live, fresh blood straight out of their body, is treat them with decent human motherfucking respect. Is that too much to ask for? Tell me. What do you guys think in the comments? What would you do if you were a donor and was forced to wear lingerie? And what would you do as a vampire and had a donor and was like, this is what they had to wear? Like, would you make them wear that? I wouldn't. I'm sure as hell would not. I don't know. I just want to know your opinions on this whole thing. Like, I get the part where they have to show some skin, right? But, like, I think it will suffice if they show a little bit of their neck and shoulders. That's fine. Shoulders, I get it, because some people like to bite in, like, the collarbone area and stuff like that, right? But, like, neck, shoulders, it. Where else are you gonna be biting? I'm sorry, I don't think you need an exposed thigh. If you're biting on the thigh, I am concerned. And is it consensual? I'm concerned. I am concerned for these people. If I was in this universe, I feel like I would be, what's it called? One of those, like, social workers for the donors. Like, do you feel safe? Yes, I do feel safe. Why are they making you wear lingerie? Like, are you good? I see those bite marks. Like, they're all consensual. You're all good. Because that could pull you out right now. Like, do not... I'd probably, like, if I was, like, let's say a vampire, I'd still go under that profession. Other vampires would probably hate my guts. I'd be going in there like, alright. That person, why are they freaking wearing basically nothing? Well, we need their exposed skin. I accidentally stopped the recording in my anger. Shut the fuck up. You do not need them to basically flaunting everything so that you can what? Bite their arm? I'm sorry. You can bite their arm, their neck, their freaking shoulders without having literally everything else exposed. Like, I'm sorry. Like, okay, I'm getting heated. I'm gonna end this now. I'm gonna end this now. I know some of you quite enjoy my, end of video comments. I'm a very chaotic person. I've been told that. But yeah, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.